Hi, everyone. I just wanted to test our microphone. If you could give us a thumbs up in the reactions, let us know if you're able to see this. That would be great. Thank you so much. All right, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and put myself back on mute. We will be providing some information in the chat field or the Q&A field. So please go ahead and make sure that you're paying attention to that. And we'll keep you posted as we get closer to our start time in about 10 minutes. Morning, everyone. While we prepare and get situated for today's training, if you could take a look at the chat feature, we do have our attachment, which is a copy of the PowerPoint with all slides in them. Everything that we'll be covering through the live version that you can go ahead and download and save. We'll also be sending this out to everyone following the training as well. Please go ahead and take a look at your chat settings. If you do not see the download and the information that was provided in the chat, please send us something within the Q&A feature, and we can go ahead and put it back in just in case those joining us now aren't able to see it. Again, hopefully you can see what's on my screen, which is a copy of the chat. Okay, so you can't see that. So in our chat feature for all of those joining right now, you can go ahead and download a copy of today's presentation. We will be starting shortly. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Sequeira. I am the Local Streets and Roads Program Manager here at the California Transportation Commission. Today, I'm joined with Leanne Batian and Celeste Acevas Almanza with my team, with the Local Streets and Roads team. They will be aiding and assisting with today's training. For those of you that are new, welcome. There's going to be a lot of information. For those of you who are returning, this is going to be a refresher. We also have some new features within CalSmart that we want to make sure that we are bringing to your attention. So again, today is the training for the Local Streets and Roads Funding Program Fiscal Year Funding Eligibility. On this slide, we are going to go over our Zoom logistics. Please take a look at that. Within the chat feature, you should all have access to the chat feature, not to necessarily chat in, but you can get information from it. In that feature, you will find a PDF that you can download, which is a copy of today's slides. It will have screenshots of everything that we will go through during the live training portion. And So it'll allow you to make notes. You can also log into CalSmart if you already have your login information and have been approved as a user. You can follow along as we are doing the live training for the CalSmart functions. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will stop throughout for Q&A portions before moving on to the next section. You can also submit your questions within the Q&A feature in the system, and we can either respond live verbally throughout the training because it's something that we believe is a broad-based question that everyone could benefit from. If it is something that is very specific and unique to you and your organization, we'll likely respond directly. We will unmute you if you raise your hand. That'll be your opportunity to speak, and we'll inform you once you've been unmuted. So going over today's technical training objectives, we will go over the program roles and responsibilities for the state government agencies as well as our local entities, the fiscal year program schedule, funding eligibility, proposed project list submittal, CalSmart, frequently asked questions, and resources. So program roles and responsibilities, very simply put, for the California Transportation Commission, for the remainder of the training, we will be referring to ourselves as the CTC or the commission. It is our responsibility to develop and adopt the program reporting guidelines for this particular funding program. We will amend and adopt the program guidelines as needed based on any statutory changes that are being made or major recommendations that need to come through to improve the program altogether. But if we do that, we will have several workshops with all of you as our stakeholders to get your input before any of that is done. We do receive and review the proposed project list and expenditure reports that are submitted from the cities and counties. We are not selecting the projects to be funded. We are not allocating directly based on the projects that you are submitting to us. We are reviewing for eligibility and completeness. So is this a project that is eligible to use the funds based on statute and our program guidelines? And did you completely put all of the required information in there and adopt per the statute and the guidelines? That is our role. Once we have adopted those at our commission meeting, we will then submit and transmit that list of eligible cities and counties to receive the road maintenance and rehabilitation account funds. These will be referred to RMRA funds for the remainder of the training, directly from the state controller's office. These are formulaic funds. Again, your funding is not adjusted based on need. It is simply a formula that is put in similar to that of your highway user tax account funds, HUDA, that you receive on a regular basis as well. So these do come in monthly from the state controller's office. We do aggregate and provide statewide program information to the legislature annually. In recent years, we have had to undergo an audit, which we passed with flying colors, thankfully. And based on all the work and thorough detail that all of you provide. So that's something that we've had to do. We've had to go and report directly to the legislature. We also have an annual report that goes to the legislature. So this program is important and it is regularly sought after for information. We do post all of this information on the commission's website. We also share it with the state controller's office. For cities and counties, you need to develop and submit an adopted list of projects to the commission each fiscal year to receive funding eligibility. You also need to develop and submit an expenditure report to the commission each fiscal year. All of this can be done through CalSmart for the reporting and actual submittal process. And we can even show you ways that we can help you develop your list within the system that you then take to your board or council for adoption. This will ensure that you have all the required detail in there and are compliant with your submittal requirements. The state controller's office, it's their job to apportion and disperse the RMRA funds to you as the cities and counties. and that it is consistent with the list that we adopt and transmitted. They also oversee other local government spending requirements, including the maintenance of effort reviews and determinations. So we get a lot of questions regarding maintenance of effort, MOE. Those aren't actually things that we can answer. We do not have any roles or responsibilities with that. So I will make sure that, to remind all of you that that is the case. So here's our program schedule, and this may help to answer some questions that we're getting. So fiscal year 25-26 program schedule, July 1st is when eligibility submittals are due to us, right? So that is the beginning of the new fiscal year. In August, we have to adopt that initial list of eligibility and then transmit to the state controller by August 31st. You may say, that's already into the new year. That's weird. Why is it already happening so late into the new fiscal year? Well, that is because number one, we wanted to make sure that these schedules aligned more with the construction and fiscal and budget schedules that all of you have for the most part. And we also wanted to make sure that it a little closer aligned with the processes of the state controller's office. So with that being said, state controller's office, they have about a 6-week turnaround time in from the time that they receive the revenues, rectify them, and then disperse them. So although the new fiscal year starts July 1, you do not receive your first payment for that fiscal year until September. Your final payment for the prior year comes in August. With that being said, September 30th is when we have our subsequent eligibility submittals due to the commission. So that's your subsequent list of projects proposed. If you miss the July 1st deadline, you have until September 30th to get something into us. And then we will adopt in October and transmit that information to the state controller's office. As a reminder, if you miss that September 30th deadline, there is nothing that we can do for you. We cannot help you become eligible. You've essentially now forfeited your funding for that fiscal year. There's nothing that we can do at that point. On the side note, if you have to elect to come in for subsequent eligibility, the really good thing there is that you're not losing funds. Your funds are just being delayed. They're being held off to the side pending your eligibility. December 1st, that is when we have our annual expenditure report due to us. For those of you that are representing your financial divisions within your organizations, you're going to know that this aligns with the annual streets and roads report that is due to the state controller's office each year for all funding that goes into your public works. So by July 1st, 11:59 p.m. is what we have this set for. You must submit the following. You have to upload a copy of your executed resolution and project list adopted for that fiscal year in the CalSmart system. You have to have created a list of projects proposed and adopted for fiscal year funding in CalSmart. That list must align with and reflect what you uploaded in the resolution. So if it wasn't in your resolution, do not add it to your project list. Again, you're going to see this said over and over again within the training. And there's a reason why we have to do it, because for some reason it gets forgotten. If you miss it, July 1st, you have until September 30th, okay? But we need you to communicate with us beforehand. Let us know so that we're fully prepared. We know who needs the assistance. The funding eligibility, what needs to be adopted in your resolution. It must be specific to the upcoming fiscal year for the RMRA funds. So if you submit to us a resolution that is for 24-25 or was adopted for 24-25, and now you're submitting it to us again for 25-26, that is not going to meet the requirements. You will have to go back and do a specific one for that fiscal year. We also prefer that it be a standalone item. That means a lot of you are doing this along with your budgets at the same time. Do not roll it into your budget adoption. Do not roll it into your capital improvement plan adoption. because of what we find a lot of times happens is the required detail for the projects themselves often get left out. The required assurances in the resolution for the funding and the purpose of the program get left out. And so oftentimes we have to find those non-compliant and submit it back. That's a headache for not only us, but definitely for you, and nobody wants to go back to their board or council to have it readopted. You must include your statutorily mandated project details. So that is your project description, location, useful life, and estimated schedule, start to end. If you do not have those 4 elements for every project that you're submitting in there, it will not be compliant. You must include the date adopted and signed, and it has to be signed by someone with the official signatory authority on behalf of the city or county. So a lot of times we get unsigned resolutions in. Let us know if it is pending. Send us a copy of the agenda from the meeting that it was adopted at, so that we know it was officially on the board and that you are just waiting for final signature. And then once you have that final signature, you can send it to us, but you can still enter it in and let us move forward, but just inform us what to expect. The proposed project list, that list should only identify those projects that are intended to utilize the upcoming fiscal year's armory apportionment. So, there's no need to relist projects that may not be using that fund for the coming year, or funding from that pot from the coming year. The other thing that we know is a lot of times, because this is happening during the budget and the CIP adoptions, sometimes there's a tendency to do like a list of projects that are 5-10 years out, right? Because you want to show what your plan is. But not all of those projects are going to be using that fiscal year's funding. Please do not do that. You do not need to do that you are going to cause more work for yourself and a sense of, misunderstanding, confusion within the public or the media. That has happened before. We have gotten a lot of questions about that, and then we've had to turn them over to your entities. And so we just want to make it as streamlined as possible and direct and efficient. The list of projects must be adopted and submitted to the commission each year. Again, it cannot be a prior adopted list and then resubmitted without action for that current year, right? So it can be the same list, but you need to readopt it. So for the proposed project details that we need for project description, just briefly describe the work to be performed based on the component phase that will be funded with RMRA. And so we'll go over component and phase, right? We'll get more into detail into that later. Project locations, citywide and countywide is only acceptable for procurement operational needs projects or pre-construction phased projects. For those projects that the location maybe hasn't been fully identified yet. This will not work for construction projects actively construction or in active construction. The location details should at minimum describe the neighborhood or area in which the work is going to be performed. To tell us it is maintenance district 5 isn't going to work, because I guarantee you the majority of your communities do not know what maintenance district they fall in. So if there's some sort of identifier that allows us to give parameters, boundaries of what that project area is, perfect. You can also say, give a broad description of the location, and also embed a link to your website, saying you can find further information on the Public Works webpage. There's a map of the project, whatever it is. And that is perfect to put in there. We just need to ensure that we are being transparent. The schedule for completion details. So based on the phase component being funded with RMRA. So again, we'll get into phase component and what that means, but provide the month and year for the estimated project start and completion. So if you are funding only the pre-construction, you're only providing the pre-construction schedule. If you're funding only construction, you're only funding the construction schedule. And so you're only going to be providing that useful life detail or that schedule, right? So it needs to be specific to what it is that you're funding. The estimated useful life, again, you're going to provide the average useful life for the work that will be performed. That's a high and a low end. Again, they have to be adopted by resolution and submitted to commission. And if any of it has the mandatory detail missing, it will be determined non-compliant and incomplete, sent back to you with a corrective action plan. And depending on what is left out, especially if it's any of the required detail, you would have to go back and readopt with the proper changes and amendments made. Here are some tips that we like to provide. You want to review the funding eligibility checklist that is provided in CalSmart, and this is under the Help and Resources tab. It is going to provide you the following information, which is what is your MRR funding purpose and eligible project detail, resolution requirements, project list requirements, and draft resolution. If you got an email for this training, that eligibility checklist, it's in there. We also have a sample resolution that was sent to you as well. So all of that came with the notice for this training. You should all have it. If you do not have it there, you can also find it on CalSmart. We will go through all of that. And again, if you do not think you're going to have this adopted prior to July 1st or by July 1st, you let us know ahead of time and let us work with you. We also strongly encourage you to provide us a draft of your resolution and a draft of your project list prior to taking it for adoption. Let us give it a courtesy review for compliance. And if we have any changes or edits, we can alert you of that and ensure that you have, the best version going forward so that way we don't have any issues approving you on the back end. Let's see. So now I'll open it up to any questions. If we have any questions, please let me know. You can raise your hand or you can submit it within the system. All right, so I'm not seeing any, oops. So someone asked, should we submit the draft reports and resolutions to the LSR inbox? And that is exactly where you should provide them. They will go to lsr@catc.ca.gov. So that is, a really important aspect and service that we provide. Nothing has changed in our sample resolution other than just making sure that we're updating the schedule cycle that it currently is in. But all of that has pretty much stayed consistent. And then we have a question, does the project list need to be have a separate resolution? So you can actually, in our sample resolution, and I'll show you this a bit later, but in our sample resolution, you can actually build in your project list into the resolution itself, or you can say see an attachment and just attach it and adopt it all together. So if you would like to list a project, let's say was completed in the prior fiscal year, that was not on the list of projects that were originally adopted for that fiscal year, you definitely can list it now. But I would only do that if you're using the fiscal year 25-26 funds to fund that project that was already completed. So essentially you advanced it, right? Using future year funds. If you did not do that, do not list it now. You will wait until the expenditure reporting period for the fiscal year in question, and you'll add that project then. If you have a project that you included in the expenditure report this last year, it's still underway and is going to be using funds from the upcoming year, I would relist it but not only relist it, you need to readopt it. If it is not readopted in the resolution, you cannot relist it in the system. You'll just report on it the next year. So let me know if you have further questions about that. No, so someone asked to clarify what you said is the project must start construction after July 1st. Is that correct? No, these projects, the way that the program works is these can be multi-year funded projects, which mean that it could be a project that started previously and is still going and you're still funding it. It could be a project that ended in a prior year, but you're funding it with multiple years of your RMRA. So, the July 1st start date is not a requirement for submitting a project for eligibility. The July 1st date in that respect of what you're referring to applies to how things are considered in their status or phase come the expenditure reporting period, because you're reporting on what the activity was within a fiscal year. But I don't want to get too much into that because that'll deter us and get us going into a different direction. And so we do have a raised hand, so we're gonna go ahead and Leon's gonna take that.
Zane Hannah, you are now able to ask your question.
Dane, it appears to be that you are self-muted. If you can unmute yourself.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So my understanding is we propose projects for projects that are going to use the upcoming RMRA apportionment, correct?
That is, yes, that is the
So,
purpose.
so if I had a project I adopted on the last submittal, and I'm assuming our city already has enough RMRA funds for that project. I guess the confusion is like, let's say our city has at least, let's say the project costs $1 million as an example, and then the city already has at least 1 million of RMRA funds in their budget. Um, let's say we get more money for the next apportionment. How do we know this project is not using the upcoming apportionment versus what we've already kind of saved up? Or do we just assume it uses the older funds first before the newer ones, or should I keep adopting this one until it's finished?
So that's something I would meet with your finance team, because they're gonna know what has been earmarked to go where. And if it's fully funded at that point. And so that's kind of where having the finance team a part of these sort of trainings is always a good idea. Because on the public works side, on the engineering side, schedule, that, okay, funding, we have funding set aside, but from what pot, you don't know. So again, really the purpose of readopting and what we see mainly is our smaller agencies that are getting a smaller pot. They are the ones who regularly have to readopt from a prior year. Right, because they don't have new projects that they're able to fund in the coming year because they're still trying to fund the prior projects because the amount of funding that they get is so small, right? So they're accruing the funding. That's where we see it mainly. And more the intended purpose of this is just to ensure that we're sort of accurately identifying to the best of our ability an idea of where the funding is going or intended to go in the coming year. And if someone were to piece together between your expenditure reporting and what it says that you have remaining from a prior year, what's currently active, and then what you intend to do in a coming year, does it kind of make sense? Does it align? Does it add up? So you just kind of want to get an idea there. But if you have further questions and more specific about that, please let me know. Anyone on our team know, we can kind of help explain it a little bit better, or talk to a member of your finance division and help them understand so it can help you better plan.
Thank you. And I guess worst case, if you're unsure, relisting the project, well, doesn't ever hurt. I mean,
It
even if you
doesn't hurt
don't,
you.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely
Uh,
doesn't hurt you.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right, do we have anyone else with the hand raised?
We do, yes. We have Kendra Reed. You were able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So if we have a project that was adopted last year and we're using last year's funds, but we're also using a portion of this upcoming year's funds, we don't need to relist that project on there. Is that correct?
I always say it kind of depends.
Okay.
How much of the upcoming year fund do you intend to use onto that project, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So if it's half or more, you definitely want to relist it because you want your public, your constituents to know where half that pot is intending to go. If it's a smaller portion, you're just kind of tying up loose ends.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really necessary.
Okay.
But at the very least, you do have to make sure that there is a project that is being adopted every year.
Okay. So there has to at least be one project on there.
Yep,
Okay.
at the
Got
very
it.
least. So whether it's a relisted project or a new project, doesn't matter, but there has to be something that is being adopted.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks for clarifying.
Of course, not a problem. All right, anybody else? If not, we're gonna go into our live.
We have another hand raised. Zayed, you are able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Everybody's concerned about what's going on about Department of Government Efficiency, and I wonder if you have more information what to expect about this SB1 fund and other funds that the cities and counties and jurisdictions are getting from federal aid, or should we expect to increase or decrease? If you have information, I appreciate if you can share.
Yeah, so I have zero information in regarding to Doge, or impacts into funding. I can tell you that in regards to the SB1 funding, our MRA funds specifically, these are state revenue driven funds. They have nothing to do with the feds, and therefore that aspect of it is a non-issue when it comes to our funding source specific for this program. I cannot speak to or for any other programs. Should you have a general question regarding budgeting impacts, I definitely recommend contacting Caltrans Office of Budgets because they may have a little bit more insight, directly working with FHWA, and understanding the funding impacts in that way. But other than that, there should be no impact to our program specifically.
Great, thank you.
Of course, thank you. With that being said, I also don't have a crystal ball and I can't tell you everything, but. All right, so we're going to get into CalSmart. This stands for the California State Multimodal Application and Reporting Tool. Affectionately referred to as CalSmart. This is a one-of-a-kind system that was created at the beginning of the program to allow for a one-stop shop sort of system for tracking and reporting and then uploading and submittals so that we can, a major portion of this program is a requirement to be transparent and also account for accountability. And so this is how we do that. CalSmart is currently open. If you have not done so, we're going to walk you through the system in order to get yourself registered. If you're already in the system, you will note that the system has already opened up for submittals. When we are not actively in a submittal or reporting period within the system, it is shut down. Not shut down in the sense of you can't access your information, but it's shut down in the sense of you cannot edit or create anything new. This is the only submittal method that is accepted for the adopted list of proposed projects and our eligibility or expenditure reporting. So this will stay open for you to access until July 1st, 11:59 p.m. Okay. Once midnight hits, that system will shut to where you can no longer create or submit or even edit what's in your system. Okay. if you are trying to register right now where we're in the middle of this training, we will not be able to approve you until later today or tomorrow. Because everyone who has access to the system that would be approving you is in this room doing this training. So please be patient with us, but we will get you taken care of. And each agency can have multiple registered users. This is sort of the great thing about CalSmart. So that if there are 3 or 4 people in your office that need to be submitting this, they can do so. You all use your own email addresses, your own passwords. So you're not sharing an email address or username. You're not sharing a password. You can pick up right where the other person left off. It allows it to be really seamless, and we have it built into the system so no duplicate reports can be created. So, you know, one can only be using it at one time. But again, this does really help. You cannot use the same email to create multiple accounts. So if you are a consultant who is doing work and you're representing multiple entities, you have to have an email for each entity that you are working on behalf of. If that email address is not aligned with the agency or entity that you are working on behalf of, we will need someone from that public works or finance department to notify us saying that you specifically do have right to access. And then we can grant you the access. But until then, we won't be able to. So we do ask for you to work with us on that. So when you're in the system for the CalSmart login, CalSmart users, your login is using the email that you used to register and the password that you created. I cannot stress this enough. The account does lock after 3 failed attempts. After your second failed attempt, just reset your password. You're going to select forgot password and you'll reset it. If you wait until you've been locked out after the 3rd attempt, you have to notify us that you've been locked. The system doesn't notify us that you've been locked. And then you have to wait for one of us to see your email, get into the system, unlock you, and notify that you've been unlocked. So again, that causes an undue stress and a delay that doesn't need to be there. Your safe bet is always going to be, if you can't remember it after 2, just reset it. When you are getting into the system and you have to register for the first time, you're going to select the register button that was on the other page, and it'll take you to this screen that is on here now. You're going to select local streets and roads program. You will see other programs, even more than what's on here right now on this screenshot, that you can select to sign up for. I cannot say this enough. If you are not actively working on state of good repair and reporting to Caltrans through that grant program, if you are not getting other SB1 funds or doing major capital improvement projects that are coming from other funding programs that get filtered through Caltrans and reimbursed through Caltrans, do not, and I repeat, do not sign up for that, because what will happen is you will get into the system. It'll send you reminders. It'll send you notifications that like maybe you're missing deadlines or that you need to create something. There have been many times where people have gone in and created something that should not have been created in the other system. There are other times that people think that they're, they don't understand why they can't upload the information or get into, or we're saying that we haven't received anything yet, but it's because that they entered everything into the wrong program. So again, local streets and roads should be the only thing that you're selecting unless you are actively working on something else. Your password comfort, and then you're going to confirm your password. You're going to see that there's specific symbols and a certain link that it needs to be. So just make sure that you're following those rules for your password. Once you hit submit, you will get a registration email that says that you have submitted to be approved for a registered email, and it's going to ask you to confirm your email, validate it, and verify it. When you do that, you're going to click where it says here in that email. We then get that notification on our end that there is a user who would like to request access. Once we go and review it, we set your your privileges within the system or your access within the system, and we accept it, you then get another notification that says that your account request email has been accepted and you now have access. Are there any questions regarding the logging into CalSmart, getting into CalSmart? All right, since I don't see anything, we are gonna go ahead and get into our live demonstration. Please give me one moment. Okay. So getting into the live demonstration, before we get into CalSmart, I want to go over a few things of what you can do to prepare for going into CalSmart and getting ready for your resolution, getting everything set up, right? The very first thing I want to take you to is the californiacityfinance.com website. This is the California Local Government Finance Almanac. Once you are here, you want to go to where it says local streets and roads, funds, HUDA SB1. Come down to where it says transportation funding source. And just note that in May, the May revise of the budget is going to come out. So your estimates may change and adjust based on that. But this is where you're going to find your estimated funding amount for the current year that we're in and the upcoming year. Once you've done that, click, it'll download. You will then download it. And this is where you will come in to find where your information is. And you'll see for 2025-26 on the far right, middle column on the far right, that's where you're going to find your road maintenance rehab account funding. So this is your RMRA LSR funds. And that's the estimated value amount. Again, this is a third party who is conducting these estimates. This is not Caltrans, the CTC, Department of Finance, SEO. None of us are the parties doing it. This is a non-government third party who has been contracted out to do this work on behalf of, I believe, the League of California Cities. And it does provide city and county information, not just city. So also what we can do from here is we will go into CalSmart. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And first off, I would like to say, oops. Hopefully I can remember the right email. Sorry, guys, little mix up. There we go. All right, sorry about that. So once you have logged into the system, this is what you're going to see. It's called the dashboard. It's going to have your name that you've registered under, and then city of or county of whoever it is that you're representing. Once you're in the dashboard, just go to where it says current program, and you're going to select a local streets and roads program. As you can see here, it says that we are currently accepting the proposed project list submittals for the fiscal year 25-26 funding eligibility and when it closes. You're also going to find these tabs here, these thumbnails, fiscal year proposed project list submittals, expenditure reporting, your profile, help and resources. The very first thing I want to show you is our help and resources tab. This is where you're going to find the LSR funding eligibility checklist, the sample list resolution. And for those of you who haven't seen a sample list resolution, let me go ahead and open that up for you. As you see it, we have it very simply put for you to be able to enter in your resolution number, the fiscal year that is that you're adopting for. We have notes, comments in here, links to everything that you're gonna need in order to fill it in for the month, for the most part. The assurances that are in here, and these are just essentially saying this is what we agree to as terms and conditions for receiving these funds, and we promise to use them in accordance to the law. Into statute, right? And then we have the bottom portion where you're gonna be able to list the project detail. And we have it set up so that you can, if you're doing a new project, you can say the following list of newly proposed, and so you're gonna provide all the detail. We have it all highlighted, all provided in there. You really can't miss it because it's all just built out for you. You're just filling in the blanks. Only if you are using future year funds so the upcoming fiscal year funds on a project that was previously proposed or reported on and adopted. This is the section that, so number 3, this is the section that you would be putting that information in. And again, all of the project detail is required, right? You can't just relist the title of the project. You have to provide all detail. And then we have our area in here for the signature. So again, we really try our best to make sure that we are providing you with as much access to like templates and samples as possible to really streamline your efforts. And I do want to thank the city of Maywood. They volunteered to allow us to use their draft and to kind of do a live submittal on their behalf and walk you through the system. So you'll see the only thing that they don't have in here is the resolution number because they haven't gone to council and it's not agendized yet. But they have all the information that's been put in, their estimated amount that they anticipate to receive in the coming fiscal year, the fiscal year that they're adopting for, how they identify the projects. And so, you know, if you have a system that you identify projects with, that's great. And we like to be able to see that. If you are using or prioritizing projects based on need, socioeconomic disadvantaged communities, getting priority and having access, if that's the way that you're doing it, whatever it is. And we strongly encourage all of those things to be taken into consideration when prioritizing a project. It's always nice to have that information provided because that does kind of send a note out to not only the legislature, but to the public about how it is that you're identifying and selecting these projects. The latest needs assessment, what was your condition measure or estimate measure of your road index condition, pavement index condition. And then as you see here, they would put into their resolution, they built out their actual project list with all of the information. So it's the new project they have in there. And then they also are going to be using some of their funds from the upcoming year on a prior year's project. And they have all of that information in here as well with all of the detail. And so this is really what we do like to see. So that's a great example. And then I wanted to provide all of you. A copy of today's technical training can also be found here and it's downloadable, and as you'll see it coming up in a PDF for the technical training with all of our slides. That's available. And then our funding eligibility checklist. So if you are questioning whether or not a project is eligible to use the funds that you're going to be getting, this is a great sort of system to go through. It's really going to give you your range of eligibility. It's pulling out the specific detail from our guidelines and really simplifying it into a quick, smaller document. I think it's like a total of 9 pages, and that's just because we're including samples of the resolution in there too for you as additional reference. Like, we wanted to make it a one-stop shop sort of document for you. And it has all the steps that you have to go through in order to become eligible, so you can check those off as you go. It also has tips on preparing. So back to our dashboard. Once we are in the dashboard for local streets and roads, you want to select the fiscal year proposed project list submittals once you're ready to submit. I would like to show you all a quick tip on how I like to prepare or make sure that you are helping you guys prepare. One thing that I always say to do is go into, and let me go back because I realized I selected it without saying. On this thumbnail, it says expenditure reporting. Let's select that. Then go into view expenditure report projects. And you want to go to the period last reported, which was 23-24, and hit apply. Take a look at these projects and see if any of these projects are also on your list for either readoption this year, or they were listed in last year's project list. Do you need to readopt? Do you need to relist these? Sort of cross-reference what you have and what you're going to have, so then that way you're not causing any redundancies if you don't need to, right? It also helps you for when you're moving forward and you know what you need to select. So you can export that out to an Excel spreadsheet if you would like, and if you need to, or you can just select the RP number and go in and read the detail if you need to get further information, just to see any of the detail that you need, right? So now I'm going to come back to dashboard. We do have these thumbnails on the top right corner. If you need to go back to dashboard, you can go back to dashboard. If you don't need to, you can go to directly the thumbnail that's related to what you want. So here, we're going to hit our fiscal year proposed project list submittals. And what I want to do first is go to view my proposed project list. Again, select the last year submitted, which was 24-25, hit apply. And now I have my list. Are any of these the same as what I'm going to be adopting this year? I do know right now that 24-25 pavement rehabilitation project is one that I have now adopted, or I would like to readopt. And so I know I'm going to have to relist that, and I can make a note on something. I'm going to come up here to the right, go back to submittals. And just a reminder, this portion of what you're doing has nothing to do with you changing the status of project that is now completed or is started. All of that has to be done during expenditure reporting, and that will not be open until the expenditure reporting period. So once you're in this submittals page, you want to go to create your fiscal year proposed project list submittal. Once you've done that, it's going to autofill based on the last information that you provided of who would be the contact, the location, email, telephone number, all of that is in there. It's going to say what funding fiscal year you're doing this, and then it does require you to briefly describe your support documentation. So what I'm going to put in here is, because it's a draft right now, this hasn't already been adopted, we're going to say draft reso and project list. No signature yet. Then I'll also put in that 2 projects total. 1 new, 1 pre-listed. So this is something that we can also look at that helps us sort of know, okay, this is what we should be looking for in their system when they have submitted. It also kind of helps you as a guide to say, this is all that should be in my list, right? Now I'm going to go to choose files. Sorry, this does take a moment. All right. So you're going to find your resolution that you want to submit, and then you're going to go ahead and upload that. As you see, the document is uploading. If I have a PCI of 80 or above, I want to provide the measurement date because it will allow you some leeway within the system if you need to. And then so what that measurement is, and then the month and year of the additional or of which the measurement was done. You also, if you need to put in additional information, like a lot of times what may happen is let's say you're supposed to adopt on the 6th of July because your June meeting got canceled for whatever reason, you can put that in there, and that's something that we can take into consideration, okay? So again, there's lots of fields for you to be able to work with. We also have a reminder in here that you do have project flexibility. And this just means that as a city or county, your list isn't necessarily limited to what you initially adopt, right, and submit. That means that throughout the fiscal year, should the priority change, should a project drop off or a scope change, whatever it is, you don't have to come back to us for formal action. You do whatever you have to do on your end to document and record that change for that project and that priority. And then during expenditure reporting, you're going to report that to us. That isn't something that you have to do here at this time. So once you say, okay, click and save, continue and save, this is where you're gonna come and find the information for your particular projects that you maybe need to relist, right? So from last year's expenditure report, we know that this particular pavement and rehabilitation project was on our expenditure report last year. It also showed up on our proposed project list for this past fiscal year. So we are going to select from the expenditure report first, and some of you may ask me why. And the reason that you would do this, again, only if you're using the upcoming fiscal year's funding, do you even need to relist? It has to be in the resolution that you're adopting, not just you getting into the system deciding to relist it, right? If it doesn't appear in that resolution, do not relist it. So let's say it's in my resolution, we already know that. The reason why we select from the expenditure report first is because it's the most recent detail that was submitted. This was done in December 1st. Your proposed project lists that you submitted for the current fiscal year that we're in, those came in July. So that means that that was all status and detail information that could have changed in the course of 6 months. Or to now, right? So we relist from here. And you just select that relist button. You know, look at the information. Say, yep, construction's right. If I need to add any project detail in here, I still can. It's a description list to the best of our ability so that you can just easily select it. You're not putting in a bunch of text. If you have additional information or other description features that need to be included that aren't within this description box, you can hit other or additional and provide that information in here. And as you're going to see, it was last reported as carried over by the expenditure report, and it was in that expenditure report year. So that's why you're going to see fiscal year 23-24. If I went back to the project list that was submitted for 23-24, this project is also in there. So this is continuously being accounted for because they're using funds from multiple years to fund this project. As you see, everything auto populates based on the last information that was put in. The only thing that it's asking for adjustment is the estimated start and completion information. So let me pull that up. So there we go. July, and it was July 24. And then estimated completion is to be August of 2025, and so I'm getting this directly from the resolution. If you have additional project elements, this is where you want to put this in. All of this is outlined within our resolution and our guidelines and the eligibility checklist. You can hover over the question mark and it will provide you detail. I don't know why it's not showing up right now. It's probably because I have this big funky mouse. But it does give you a I think it's because I have multiple screens and the big funky mouse going on. But it will give you descriptions of what those additional elements are, what it means, right? Sustainability, this is usually going to be your recycled asphalt, the methods that you're using to do the work. If it's taking into account climate change, or is it shade, is it, so exactly what is it? Drainage runoff, whatever it is, the technologies that you're using, or is it a complete streets component, right? So this is where you're going to enter in that information. You can also add additional detail if you need to for that. And what you see is that it's going to tell you relisted it from this reporting year, right? That's exactly where I wanted to relist it from. It's the most recent and accurate data. So now I'm going to say save and continue. Oops. That's right. We have a new feature. I completely spaced. What you do see here is, and this is a great thing about our system, is that if there's a required field and you miss it, it's not going to let you move on, and it's going to alert you right away that there's an issue and you need to go and address it. So what you see here, it says, is this project eligible for emergency repair, reimbursement, or a part of disaster recovery? And in this case, it is not. But if it was, let's say you said yes, it would create an additional drop down that says fire, earthquake, flood, or other. And if you have other, you would put in what the description of the emergency repair is, right? And so in light of what's been going on in the last few years and where we are seeing the funding going and helping to really advance some of these repair projects while you're pending reimbursement, it's become sort of a crucial go-between, and it has been a vital resource for a lot of our jurisdictions who have been impacted. So we want to make sure that we're accurately capturing that and conveying that information to the public. But in this case, for this particular project, the answer is no. Now we're going to hit save and continue, and this is a brand new feature again. So just be prepared. If it doesn't apply to you, just put no. Once I hit save and continue, it now is going to take me back to the reported projects list. I'm going to look at it. I do not need to relist this project again down here from the 24-25 list, because guess what? I've already relisted it, and I relisted it from the most recent information that was provided in the system. So now I'm going to come back up, look through everything. Nope, there's nothing else I need to relist. So now I'm going to come to skip to add new projects. And this is where we would put all of our new project detail information in for what was just recently adopted. And so I'm going to be we will actually finish this all later, but I'll just kind of get it started. It is a road maintenance and rehabilitation project. As you see, there are drop downs. Again, for our new people, we do have a really large number of new staff members within the local entities. So this is their first time in CalSmart. But for our newbies, as you see, we have drop downs. If it's a complete streets project, are you using this just as match funds for another funding type project that's eligible? You do have the option to select other grades, road grade separation, road maintenance, rehabilitation, safety, and traffic control devices. Why do we have these project types as the drop downs? Because they're the most common use for the intended purpose of the fund, and it's what's outlined as sort of those eligible type projects. Doesn't mean that it's the only projects that you're eligible to use, but it's just the most common. the priority status, we're gonna say this is new because it's newly being adopted. You would only change the statuses here if the project was relisted from a prior year and is now like, let's say, active or whatever, or just being carried over. That's where you're going to add that. If the project is a future forecasted project, which means it may be a new project, yeah, it could be for 27, 28. So I'm not saying 25, 26. I'm saying 27, 28 for a reason, because a future forecasted project needs to be at least 2 years out, right? And that's indicating to us that you're reserving your funding for future years so that you can deliver a specific project. So we're gonna say new, and here for the fiscal year, 25, 26. Now, this is where we're gonna talk about your phases, your components, right? So we already priority status, that's the phase. Component, what is the project component? Where are you using your RMRA funds? Are you using it in pre-construction? Are you using it in construction? Are you using it in both pre-construction and construction? Or is it going to be for procurement operational needs? And I do apologize, my allergies are getting the best of me, and so I've become entirely stuffed up while talking. But so if I'm hard to hear, please let us know. So if you select pre-construction, you are going to see only pre-construction type of related description fields. If you select construction, again, that's what you're going to see. Are you doing a repair or rehab to an existing asset, or are you installing a new asset? Very rarely, if ever, should any of those, should all of what you're selecting ever be new, right? There should be existing work that you're rehabbing and repairing. If you're doing both pre-construction and construction, you're gonna get all of those fields and drop downs available to you. And what I want to show you is that you're also going to get 2 sets of schedules, one for pre-con and one for con. And then there's procurement operational needs. And a lot of people say, well, I don't really understand what is procurement operational needs. Well, this is your procurement of your public works equipment, road maintenance, rehab materials, safety materials, systems, databases. So a lot of you use specific databases or systems to help select your projects. What we saw in the first few years of the program is that these really small entities who did not have a database were able to purchase a database using the funds that they got in the program. And so that they were able to establish a better and real-time tracking system, right? Also, it can be used for like your staffing of your public works labor staff, the guy, whoever's going out doing the actual road work. If it is your own labor force performing the work. So, this is a good tool to do, especially if, like, let's say you're doing a lot of pothole filling, right? And it's just, that's all you're funding with this is pothole filling or clean, street sweeping, right? This is a great component to select in those instances. Also your, vehicles for the work that you're performing. So if you have a mixer that needs to be repaired or rented or whatever it is, this is a good component to use because you can use the funds there. So in this, it is construction. I'm going to just, again, we are going to really, this isn't everything, I'm just making a couple of selections as I go through. Okay, let's just say that's what it is. Oh, something else that I wanted to point out before we go out, and I cannot stress this enough. If internally you have a project ID or some sort of, numeric or naming system that you have for these projects, please put that project ID in here. That is not public facing, that is only within the system. We and you would be the only ones that see it. But what is really vital for this is that will carry on into the reporting side of the system. And what will happen is, let's say you're not the one now who is reporting on it, and you guys refer to it differently. You've changed the title of the project since you initially submitted, and now it's referred to as something else, but it still has the same project ID. That's great. This allows them to know, oh, that's the right project. I just need to change the title, right? We see that happen a lot where the same project gets now entered into the system over and over again, but it's just because the title has slightly changed or the locations slightly changed or even the scope a little bit, but it's still technically the same project and you still have coded it the same everything, but they've just recreated duplicate records, and so that becomes problematic. So if you have one, we definitely recommend that you do that. So again, I am not entering in the correct information right now. I'm just gonna go through and enter it in. You want to put, what is your state senate, district, your numbers, your assembly. And then we also want to go into here for the min and max for the useful life. So I'm gonna do 10 and 15. Estimated total project costs, all funding are including your arm rate. That is optional. If you want to put it in, you can. If you don't, you don't. For project locations, and this is a new project. I'm gonna go ahead and put in what they've provided us for that. And just a reminder, these fields are limited in characters. You're gonna see it's limited to 500 characters. You do not need to provide every single segment, right, of work that's being done. Try again to make it as simple for people to identify as possible, and keep it within that 500 range. So the estimated start time for this is going to be August of 2025, and estimated completion they have here is June of 2026. And I am gonna change this because now I see 750. All right. And then does this include additional elements? And because I know that I selected sidewalks and EDA curb ramps, right? We know that that does include complete streets components. So we're gonna go ahead and identify it there, okay? If I wanna add in more detail here, I can. Now I'm gonna put no for, it's not an emergency repair. I can hit save and exit, save and continue. That'll take me back to the relisting page, save and duplicate. And so that'll just create the same, fillable new page detail if I want to do that, or I can hit cancel if I'm not sure I want to save this. Just to know, we can always undo and delete something if you accidentally save something that you didn't want to. So for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and hit save and exit. And now I'm at my, what is called the manage submittals page. And you may go, okay, great, I see this now, wonderful. And then you exit out or you go back to the dashboard and you're gonna go, oh my gosh, how do I get back there? You're just gonna either come down to the thumbnail that says fiscal year proposed project list submittals, or you're gonna go up to the top thumbnail that says submittals with the briefcase. You'll select that. And it's going to be right here that says manage fiscal year proposed project list submittals. Let's say you have a partner who is now the one getting into the system and trying to finish everything up for you. And they think that nothing, or they don't even realize anything's been created and they want to select create. Well, guess what? It's going to tell you right away that one has already been created, and you can click here to view your submittal, or you can contact us if you think this is there. So don't worry about creating duplicate submittals. View proposed project lists. Again, you are now going to see, if we come down here and we select LSR 2526 and we hit apply, you now are going to see the two projects that you created, and you're going to see a status in here that says pending. That pending means that you haven't even submitted it in yet, right? It's still in your box, in your managed system. So now we're gonna go back to submittals. We're gonna go to manage fiscal year. And you're gonna see over here on the left, all these approved ones, because they have green check marks on your left under submittals. And then you're gonna get down here and you're gonna say, oh, I see one that has this yellow triangle. That's the one I'm gonna select. It doesn't have a check mark, it has a triangle. Now I'm gonna look at it and say, okay, let's double check and make sure that it's the right one. Now that I've selected it, it sure is. It says up here on the right corner, 25-26. Going through the information, seeing I can change it if I would like to change it. Who my contact person is, what my documentation, support documentation summary is. If I want to view the files because I want to make sure that I uploaded the correct file, I'll select this and it says view files. If I go in here and I realize I uploaded the wrong file, or it's still just the one with the signature or without the signature, it's just a draft, or it was a placeholder that I created so I can upload anything and just get in here and start the system. And now I have the right thing that I want to submit or put in there, I can delete it and then upload a new file. So all of that's in there, right? So you have a way to change and update that information. And if you don't have your resolution yet done and it hasn't been submitted and you're not under review, but you want to get into the system to start creating everything, you can do that. Just get in here, upload whatever you need to, put in that description summary that it is just some bookmarks just so that you can get in there and start submitting and creating. And then we go and change it out later. That's not a problem. So I see here I have my estimated schedule. Let's pretend I didn't have my resolution and I didn't build out my my project list in the system, right? Or I'm sorry, into the resolution itself. And I didn't do all of that. We're just going to pretend for a moment that I didn't do that. Because what I want to do is go in here and kind of see, you know, what can I do for this? To make it easier to ensure that I built out the list correctly, and that's what I want to adopt. So I'm going to go to where it says create PDF here under all that intake information next to view files. I hit create PDF. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And as you see, all the information is in there, including the date that you created it. And then you're going to have like date submitted, date accepted. All of that's going to be in there, so it's all recorded. But the part that you would want to add a header to say, hey, this is for, sorry, my nose. This is for, we're adopting it, right? We want to use this as our attachment of our project list. So that way we don't have to worry about inputting anything into our resolution specifically and risk leaving out any of the required data or detail. All of the required detail per statute is actually in here. And so a lot of times what we have is where it says project details in the upper top right hand corner, they say attachment A, and in their resolution, they say we are adopting the list of projects identified in attachment A. And this is just what they end up by submitting as a part of their resolution when they adopt it within their council or board. And we think that is a great idea. We fully support it. And there's a reason why we created this to do this particular function is so that it would create an ease of access and streamline for all of you to ensure that you are compliant with all the requirements. So now that I've done all of this, I've checked my funding amount, I've input everything into the system that I needed. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit submit for review. It's going to ask me if I'm sure I would like to submit, because once I submit, I will no longer have the ability to edit. I'm sure I don't want to edit it. Let's submit it. And as you see up top, it says project submitted successfully. And I'm going to say, okay. And now I'm looking at that same on the submittals box, scroll box on the left, or column. I see now I have a blue clock. You know, it's a clock that's now there. That means that it's currently under review. We have it, right? And so that is going to be it for the live demonstration. Before I leave the live demonstration and go into our frequently asked questions and resources, I would love to know if you have any questions.
But I would say when we will see it,
Here,
they're kind of buried. But I'll just ask them.
yeah, go ahead and ask.
Okay, so someone wanted to know if they had a project that could be potentially reimbursed, should that be included in the resolution?
Please clarify. Reimbursed as in, with emergency funding?
They just said in the event that we program SD1 funds for a project that is waiting on funds, would those funds just become available for use on other projects once we get reimbursed?
So if you're advancing a project using Armory funds, but no Armory funds are going to remain on that project. And it's going to go back into Armory, I wouldn't, because you're not actually using your Armory funds, you're getting reimbursed. Because essentially what would happen is you would then get those funds back. Okay, yes, for emergency reimbursement. So, so usually what happens for emergency type of projects is that a minimum of like 25%, if it's not a full cost reimbursement, right? A minimum of the 25% of Armory tends to stay on it. And then the 75% of reimbursement comes in. So you're not reporting that the project is fully funded with Armory, but only partially funded with Armory. And then that's fine. And yeah, so you would definitely want to adopt that and list it because it is a place where you are going to be able to identify that.
And then someone asked if we can review, go over the priority statuses. Like new in progress.
Yeah, so we'll go over new in progress. Someone also asked if we could upload an Excel file with all the project details instead of manually entering in the portal. No, you do have to manually enter it into the portal. I know it's a hassle, but for the most part, it's a lot of copy and pasting that you're able to do, so it's not too taxing. And because we have the drop downs and pre-selected identifiers for your description, it does really streamline it. The other thing that we had to do in adding in those description fields is because not everybody uses the same terminology for doing the same work. And what we found is from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, you may be doing similar or the exact same work, but you refer to it differently. You refer to your statuses or your phases differently. And so to streamline it, that's what we have to do. The first few years we did try to do Excel, but what ended up by happening was every segment of a project showed up on its own line, and it turned into 325 projects where it was technically 325 segments of a singular project. And then someone was asking for, was it the phases or priority statuses? So new is, it's a newly proposed project, right? It's brand new, you're just bringing it up. And you could call something new or forecasted, right? If it's a project that's like 2-3 years out, 5 years out, whatever that you're saving up funds for, that's when you would identify it as like new or forecasted, something along those lines. The other ones that you're gonna see are carried over, or in progress or completed. You know, unless a project has already been adopted, has been in the system and included in an expenditure report, or was in last year's list for proposed project and became active and you haven't done your expenditure report yet, you would not change any of those statuses other than just to be carried over, relisted. That's only going to apply to the relisted type of projects. If it's not relisted, it is either going to be new or forecasted. Those are going to be the only two that you should be selecting. Carried over is just a project that had no work done on it in the prior year. It's still a priority. You're still going to be using the upcoming fiscal year funds on it. And so you're just carrying it over year to year until you can fund it, right? And it's intended to be used in the next year. It's intended to be active in the next year. That's when you're gonna call it carried over. So I hope that helps clarify it. We also, in the eligibility checklist, as well as in, if you look up our expenditure reporting guide, all of these details with every explanation for them and examples are provided. Regarding flexibility of projects, if a city reports a specific project for rehab on a specific street and we don't, oop, that's gone,
Sorry,
don't know what it said.
location change.
So a location change, so you would capture location changes in the location field. If it's not a list or if it's not a project that you're relisting for the current year, you don't need to address it right now. If it's because it's a location or scope change that is going to be on a project that will show up in the expenditure report that you have to do come December 1st, that will be due December 1st for this current fiscal year. You will just go ahead and identify that in that expenditure report. So again, those are all things that you have the ability to do. Hey, Richard, we will work with you directly and so that you can provide us examples of what you're talking about, because that's very specific to your jurisdiction and regarding how your predecessor did it. If a project is carried over, it will still require a new resolution, correct? Even if one had already been done for the prior year that was originally. So only if you were relisting it, right? So if you are relisting the project, that's being carried over from a prior year and it's intended to use the upcoming fiscal year's fund, do you need to include it in the resolution? But a resolution in a project must be adopted every year. I don't care if it's a relisted project or a new project, but it must be done every year. So either way, there has to be something that is done in that way. If we complete a project in 24-25, do we need to relist it? Just no, you're only gonna report on the project during expenditure reporting. And if you've already completed it and you're not using upcoming fiscal year funds on it, or the amount of the upcoming fiscal year funds is very, very small that you would use to close out that project, then you know, you really don't need to relist it. But again, you have to have a project that you're adopting with a current resolution in order to be eligible for funding in the coming year. All right, do we have anything else?
You do have one raised hand. Melanie, pause if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question. It looks like you just muted yourself.
You answered my question, but I was gonna reach out to you guys separately as well.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. City Elect, we'll get you guys out of here pretty quickly. All right, so I will get into. Okay, really quickly, if it's a different phase of the project, for instance, striping a different area of the city, would that be a relist or a new project? So that is a good question. It sort of depends. Is it under one contract? Is it being outsourced under one contract? Is it a part of an annual paving project that has multiple phases? So again, so if it's under one contract, like, okay, so yeah, you just said yes, under the same contract. If it's under the same contract, then it's the same project. And so you're just gonna be adding up the, adding in the additional language. And if you need to relist it because you're using future year funds on it or the upcoming fiscal year funds, then you relist it, but make sure that it's in your resolution, you're readopting it, and you're just adding in that location if that's what you need to do. All right. So now we're just gonna go into our frequently asked questions. So again, all the phases or priority statuses, again, carried over in progress, things like that, that's all in the eligibility checklist for specifics. Carried over just means it wasn't active in the current year that you're in, and it did not start within that, or it will not start within that fiscal year, and did not start within that fiscal year. In progress means within the fiscal year that we're reporting in, it is active. It has started the work, okay? But all of that again is in a lot of detail. So frequently asked questions, we are relisting projects. Again, we've covered this over again. I just want to make sure that you know that it's in here, and it explains why we have to do that and include projects and resolutions every year. Can we use the capital improvement plan adopted for the coming fiscal year as the proposed project list? And I'm going to say, no, you really should not, again, because the required detail in the adopted CIP does not align with the required detail in order to have your project list adopted and be deemed eligible. It doesn't mean that you can't use the same projects. It just means that you have to separately identify that. I don't care if it comes in a staff resolution, a staff report that you do, in addition to something, and you're outlining it and that's being adopted and signed off on. But it needs to be specific to the fiscal year and for those specific projects. When it's buried in, we get a lot of problems. A project eligibility checklist can be found in the program's guidelines as well as the gas tax guidelines. To know whether or not your specific project is eligible. If you're unsure and you come to us and we are unsure, we always defer to the state controller's office. 9 times out of 10, I think it's a very, very small amount where there's something that maybe they allow that we don't. But if it's something that they believe is acceptable under the gas tax guidelines that they have, and which you're allowed to use HUDA for, then usually it's going to fall under eligibility for us as well. But it is always good to ask if you're unsure after you look at the resources we've provided you. So that's that eligibility checklist, our guidelines, or the gas tax guidelines for the SEO. We really do outline it very well and in detail. I think they do as well. We also include FAQs that we send out to everybody that kind of touches on all of this. So please, please, please use your resources first before coming to us. Because I'm going to promise you that within the next 3 weeks, it's going to be very hard to get a hold of us. Come mid-May, usually through July 1st, we are bogged down with everybody submitting. It's 540 jurisdictions coming in at the same time with over 2,000 people that we contact and coordinate with. So, and there's only 3 of us. So it gets very, very hectic. And let's be honest, it's 2 of them really taking on the brunt of the assistance. So when can you access the proposed project list submittal feature in CalSmart? It's already open. If I was not clear, it is very open. We have been opening up a little bit earlier to try and help and assist everyone to get in as soon as possible if they would like to create their lists early. Changes to your status updates for previous projects or scope changes, location changes, you don't need to make those now unless you're relisting that project. The only time that you're going to be making a status change or a scope change to a project that was previously adopted is going to be during your expenditure reporting, which, you know, that closes December 1st and we open it up mid-October and we start doing our training in mid-October. If I relist a project in the upcoming fiscal year, do I still need to report on it in the expenditure report for the current year? Yes, relisting does not absolve you from expenditure reporting and vice versa, okay? What is the current status of your maintenance of effort requirement? Again, any questions regarding that need to be directed to the state controller's office. That is not something that we have purview over, and I would not dream of touching it. If you miss the submittal deadline again of July 1st, you can come in by September 30th. We accept edits if you submitted in July. We accept edits all the way into early August until we have to get ready to adopt and post. So we really want to make sure that we are working with all of you to be open, honest, and have direct communication with us. If for whatever reason you think you are not going to make it by July 1, please let us know. Make sure you're contacting us and keeping us in communication. As many of you know, we do not hesitate to get involved with your MPOs or your RTPAs and have them reach out to you directly. If we are not getting responses from you to indicate whether or not you're going to submit, we will continue to do so should we need to. But we do not like having to do that, just because, you know, I think we all have a really good report and we would like to continue to maintain that. Here's our list of resources, everything that you need to find, all of these links in the attachment are live links that you can select, and it'll take you to everywhere that you need to go. Again, League of Cities, California State Association of Counties, and then the California Local Government Finance Almanac. That is literally where you are going to go and find what your estimate is for the upcoming fiscal year. And then any questions that you have, please contact the LSR inbox. I do always recommend that you contact the LSR inbox simply because multiple people are able to really oversee that and respond, so you're not going to have as much of a delay. And with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead, and this is being recorded. We have 2 sessions that we do each day. So should this be the recording that does go online and that we post, we will let you know. Either way, once it's posted, one of either this one or the next one will end up by going on. And are there any questions? Okay, not seeing any questions come in. What I'm gonna do is ask Celeste just to make sure that she has uploaded the technical training slides one more time into our chat. Please go into the chat. Feel free to go in and download it so that you have access to this without having to leave yet. If not, you can get into CalSmart and you can download the training slides there as well. I will go ahead and put this on mute and let us sit here for another 5 minutes. If nobody else has questions, we will go ahead and end it then. And the recording will be available within about a week or so. It just takes time. We have to have make sure everything's ADA compliant, and then the posting has to occur. And thank you all for taking the time for coming out today and participating in this training. It's always a good refresher, and for our new people, we are here for assistance, technical assistance, and questions that you have. And for our seasoned vets of the program, you know, you can reach out to us whenever you do need to, okay? And yes, the frequently asked questions, some of that includes the Q&A portion of today's training. Those will also go out later. For those of you asking about the project expenditure reports, we do have the training for the project expenditure report is posted online. You can go to the CTC local streets and roads page, and you will see the training from last year's expenditure report is on there, and it's under training resources.
Hand raised. Philip, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi there, I'm sorry. I keep coming back to this as far as the projects that might not have been completed in the next fiscal year, but then are pushed back to another. So does that mean that if I have to do a new resolution for the new funds, if there I need additional funds, does that mean there's no resolution if I've already have the funds secured from a previous resolution?
I'm so sorry, that just really confused me.
I'm sorry. So in an example for a carryover, so let's say the project's carried over. So I'm not asking for additional funds in the new fiscal year, but I'm still going to carry out the work in a future year. Like I don't need any additional funds. So would a resolution still be needed if I don't need additional funds?
So not for that project, but so your constituents are paying into this fund every day at the pump, right?
Hmm.
If you don't come in for funding and you don't do a resolution this year at all for any project that potentially could be eligible to use the funds where you want to earmark that funding, you're then forfeiting that fund and then the fund gets dispersed evenly amongst whoever else. If you're a city, it goes to all the other cities. If it's a county, it goes to all the other counties, right? So a resolution and a project have to be identified every year in order to continue to receive funding.
Okay, so if I don't use them in 1 year, the funds are gone, even if I have it marked as a carryover.
No, the funds are not gone. Once you have the funds, you have the funds. Okay?
Okay, I
In
see.
order to continue to get the upcoming year's funding, right? You need to have so bottom line is, I don't care if it's a carryover project, a relisted, new, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But bottom line is, in order to get funding every single year, and the funds are allocated or apportioned out to dispersed on a monthly basis, right? And it's all formula. So in order to actually receive those every year, you have to adopt a project via a resolution and provide specific detail for that project. And it has to be an eligible project. If you fail to do that, you are forfeiting your funding.
Understood for new projects. But if that carryover project has already been approved and I've received,
How you use it, how you allocate it, how you earmark it, how you fund it, that's up to you. You know, whatever pot, you don't need to do another one specifically for that project. You just, in order to continue receiving the funds, so these funds don't sunset. If you, let's say you had to hold on to your funding that you receive and we have this a lot that actually happens. So like the average timeline is about 3 years for our smaller jurisdictions that have to hold and reserve their fund. So what they do is they show a project that they intend to fund and they list it, and it may be the same project every year that's on the resolution, and they're just constantly adopting it. And that's because they are accruing the funding amount that they need from the program itself in order to deliver said project. And so they have to do it over multiple years. There is no use it or lose it. You do not return the funds. Once you have them, you have them. As long as you're using them in accordance to statute and the program guidelines, you're good to go.
okay, and then it would just come up in the expenditure report when I actually use them. And that's when you get, okay.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. That helps out a lot. Thank you for clarifying.
Of course, my pleasure. I've been talking about this program for almost 8 years now, so forgive me, sometimes I forget to be very specific. I may kind of clump some things together because it's secondhand at this point. So if you have questions or need further clarification, I am not offended by that by any stretch of the imagination. All right, we're gonna give it about 3 more minutes. We'll stay on and then we'll go ahead and log off. For those of you who don't have any further questions, feel free to go ahead and get off the training, but we're gonna just hang out until 10:45, okay? Thank you all so much for all of your hard work and great questions. Oh, you have a question? Perfect.
Zay and Hannah, you are allowed to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi there. Just sorry, sorry if I missed this. Just confirming this will be posted, correct? Online next few, like maybe a week or so, or is it this video recording?
Yeah, so the actual recording of this will be posted within about a week, but the slides, so I did a live demonstration for you and talked everything out. But in the
Yep.
slides that we've handed out or that are available to download, it actually walks you through what I did online.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so it'll break everything down step by step.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Of course. All right, everyone, we're gonna go ahead and end this now. Thank you all so much again, and feel free to contact us at our inbox that you see on the screen. We're here to answer all your questions. Just know today is not going to be the day that we likely respond, as we have another one of these sessions after lunch. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Take care.